Are you like most sales and other professionals who want to grow their wealth faster than what they are currently doing through their company 401k, even with that company match, the stock market, or just plain saving money? Would you sleep better at night if you had the financial freedom to be job optional in just 3 to 5 years through investing in real assets? Maybe you don't want to stop working, but wouldn't it be cool if you could retire a decade earlier than most? And do the traveling you and your family have planned for years while you're still young and can enjoy it? Let's face it, most busy professionals don't have the time or desire to take on more work outside of their W-2 to grow their wealth. On The Wealth Flow, each week we share the stories, the investments, and take a deep dive into the various asset classes that can deliver that accelerated growth to your portfolio passively. That's right, no extra work for you. Instead, we'll put your money to work. Learn what the 95% aren't talking about and join the top 5% of earners today on The Wealth Flow.
All right, welcome to The Wealth Flow. My guest today is Jack Martin. Jack Martin is the co-founder of 5210 and the chief investment officer. His experience includes general contracting, development, capital management, and the acquisition and disposition of over $450 million of residential and commercial real estate. After serving in the U.S. Army, and thank you for your service, Jack began his entrepreneurial journey as a general contractor specializing in land and custom home development. He spent 14 years with an Arizona-based real estate firm where he became adept in sourcing off-market properties and fostering relationships with capital partners. During his time, he acquired and sold over 2,000 single-family homes and over 900 apartments and mobile home parks. In 2016, he co-founded 5210 to focus on mobile home parks. Jack, I'm looking forward to this. Welcome to The Wealth Flow.
Well, I'm glad to be here. Paige tried to get me scheduled for quite some time now, and schedules just didn't work out. But now we're here. Let's talk shop.
That's right. Exactly. And what I typically will like to do is just start with your background, where you grew up and what eventually led you to real estate. Obviously, you started in a different avenue of real estate than you're currently in, which is normal. But I always love to hear people's background.
So I'm a Minnesota boy by birth, and I grew up in a huge family, kind of rural, 50 miles outside of Minneapolis. Grew up as the fourth oldest of 17 children. So it was pretty quickly recognized to a young boy that if I wanted something that didn't fit the family budget, I had to go figure it out and earn it myself. So I went through paper routes and picking berries and working at the flower nursery and pulling weeds and odd jobs in the neighborhood to I got into development of septic systems, which who knew that was going to be valuable in the mobile home park business.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, good point.
Yeah, then I got into construction, joined the military, served in the Army for 3 years in the infantry, and then and that's where you remember a guy named Carlton Sheets?
I do. Yeah.
So
sure.
Late night TV, sitting in the dorms, in the military. Carlton Sheets was on probably 1:00 in the morning. And I bought his commercial real estate course, and it was the cassettes. And I was the most annoying fellow soldier because every time we'd go downtown, I had those things in the truck, and I was listening to those boring commercial real estate instruction. And that was the old school way of doing real estate. The principles still apply today. But that's probably where I got the itch. I didn't do it right away. I went back to my general contracting roots and I kind of did it, the slow way. But eventually that bug that had bit me when I was 18 years old in the military caused me to go do it for real.
Yeah. So, and with that, what avenue did you start with? So you'd heard
buying land. I started buying land and building custom homes. So natural kind of first step for someone who's in contracting already. So if you're already building homes, instead of building them for a developer, just start building them on the side on your own. So that's how it started. That led to, there was a friend of mine in our church group who was playing that game, that Robert Kiyosaki's game, Cash Flow.
Yeah.
Remember that game?
Uh-huh.
And he and his buddies were sitting around one night playing that game, and they're saying, why are we doing this for fun when we could be doing this for real? So that's what started the single family homes, like flipping business.
Okay.
So I joined those guys as kind of a part-time thing, but it turned into a full-time thing. And we at one point were one of the largest wholesalers in Arizona, doing a couple hundred homes a year. So a guy's night innocent game turned into a full-time career. And then I got into apartments. So single family homes are great, but a lot of things changed in the last decade that I was doing that, where it used to be, you had to go down to the courthouse, pull the microfiche to find out who owned a property. And it was a lot of boots on the ground, grinding every day. And when the internet kind of brought the ability to work out of your kitchen and in your slippers and your bathrobe, the competition completely changed. So it just became a grind. The single family home thing to me was not the final landing spot. I thought it was going to be apartments. So I got into apartments, smaller ones at first, and then quickly realizing that more doors is better. So we were doing like 100 to 150 unit apartment buildings in Phoenix. And then I tripped over this thing called mobile home parks. I think it's serendipity now when I look back on it, but we were trying to buy an old apartment building that had been abandoned. It was all boarded up. This is in the city of Flagstaff in Arizona. And the city wouldn't let us bring it back online because it had lost its conditional use permit. And right next door, there was a small mobile home park that ironically had the exact amount of land that you would need for the parking. So I knocked on that guy's door, bought it, went back to the city. Long story short, the city wouldn't ever give me a permit to bring that thing back to be an apartment. So now I own a mobile home park. That's how I bought my first one. It was I call it an accident, but it was probably the luckiest accident I ever had. Once we turned that thing around and stabilized it, I said, man, this is the best cash flow of any real estate I've ever owned. We got to do more of this. And I tried to turn the head of the company that we were at, but they wanted to do apartments. So I left and focused solely on mobile home parks.
Okay. And that first one, how many units was that one?
That was just a 6-unit, half-acre. Yeah, that's all it was.
Yeah. But still, you can obviously see the proof of concept with it. And so you bought and closed on that. Did you have the apartment under contract, or had you already actually gone through with purchasing?
Yeah, I had the apartment under contract, and the owner was essentially saying, good luck. The city's never going to give you a permit. But I don't take no very easily.
Yeah.
So I fought that for about 6 months. And the seller was he was nice. He was like, if you can get a permit, I'll wait for a year. I don't care. Because I'd like to see this sold. Yeah. And eventually that building became a government office. Surprise, surprise.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So that was probably their intention the whole time.
Yeah, maybe so. And so you have experience now with apartment complexes. You say, decent size, 100 to 150 units. Now you've seen, this kind of opportunity with the mobile home parks. Where did it go from there after that first 6-unit one?
Yeah, so we had purchased a bunch of smaller mobile home parks. And I think the same lesson that every operator learns in any asset class is that a bunch of small properties is almost harder to manage than even single family. So when we consider there's not enough income to afford a good manager and maintenance team on site. So we quickly discovered that the minimum size for that you could at least afford to have staff on site was about 50 to 60 spaces. So when we started, I exited that company, started buying mobile home parks in the state of Arizona, because that's where we're based out of. So our first fund was about 650 lots total. It was 6 properties. And there was a couple 50 space, actually 2 or 3 of them, small, like 50 space parks. And we quickly learned while we managed and operated those that was still too small. So for what we wanted to do at scale, it's just as much work to manage a 50 space property as it is a 100 space or a 200 space property. It's just maybe more staff. And in some cases, a larger property is actually easier.
And so on these, this first 650 that you bought within, sounds like a fund structure, what was the makeup on that as far as, are you buying stuff that's just tenant-owned homes, park-owned homes, a combination of? What is, kind of what are you buying there?
It comes kind of in all shapes and sizes. So what we were really buying is the opportunity to improve performance. So we were looking for value-add opportunity of some magnitude that allows us to move the needle irrespective of what happens in the world around us on the NOI of the property. So we've purchased properties with private water and private sewage, like septic or like all variants of that. Properties with vacant lots, properties with vacant park-owned homes or occupied park-owned rentals, and you name it. We've kind of purchased it all. We've learned some great lessons. Probably could write a great book.
Yeah.
I've purchased properties where we thought we knew what the tenant pool was. And then when we owned it, we found out what the tenant pool really was. And in one case, it was half like meth addicts.
Oh my gosh.
And we were not aware of that. So, but you're still able to turn those around. It just takes a lot more effort. We've learned a ton of lessons, but today we like to pursue a little bit more institutional quality assets. So, or at least with institutional bones. So good location, 3-star or better, or 3-star bones or better. I'm not really concerned about, or maybe I don't would suggest that we don't favor one type of value add over another, although operational underperformance is the easiest to solve. Like you can do it the quickest.
Right.
So, but now we're fully integrated vertically. So we have our own home sales in-house, all of our marketing is in-house, all our management's in-house, everything's in-house. So that's probably the harder part of the business than buying the parks or raising the capital. Hardest part of the business is building the operations in-house so that you could pull all the leverage yourselves.
Yeah, exactly. Tell me a little bit, just let's dig into maybe the 3-star plus parks. So when you say 3-star plus or even institutional bones, what are some of the things that you're looking for in a park that may need work, but you're saying, hey, look, it can, on the exit, we can get it up to what an institution will look at?
Yeah, so I think if you kind of look at the characteristics that would be attractive to an institutional buyer, location is going to be number one. So you won't see institutional buyers typically going into small tertiary markets. They're going to be in primary, secondary markets or maybe bedroom communities to those. So location is going to be important. I also think like median home values in the marketplace, you'll see some correlation where institutional owners they lean towards buying in more expensive markets than less expensive markets. And we can kind of get into the bones of, or the meat of why. That's primarily related to wanting to have 100% tenant-owned homes.
Right.
So institutional buyers typically aren't excited about park-owned inventory, nor are our agency lenders. They're not excited about park-owned inventory. So you could have some small percentage of it, but and then typically they'll be looking for city water, city sewer. although septic is really not frowned upon, but there are other versions of private utilities that are. So public utilities are usually a plus. When I say bones, institutional bones is usually about density, street width. Like you could have an old park that's been neglected, and the pavement is potholes everywhere, and the landscaping is all dead, and the lighting doesn't even work, and the homes, half the spaces are empty, and the homes are old and falling apart. But if the streets are wide enough, and the lot density is, call it like 10 per acre or less, it's got institutional bones. And if the location is good, you could bring that back to life and have a really nice 3.5, 4-star park. So it's a lot of work, but that's probably the heaviest lifting value add that we'll do. And we typically only want to take one of those on at a time. I don't want a whole portfolio of those, because it really takes dedicated, focused energy to stay on top of it and meet budgets and timelines.
Yeah, makes sense. And when you're buying parks that have some park-owned homes or even vacant homes that need to be are you rehabbing those, or are you just bringing in new homes, or how are you going about are you converting them to eventually be tenant-owned homes?
Yeah, it depends. If the age of the home is age and condition of the home has gone kind of past the point of no return, we'll just pull out a vacant home and just replace it with a new one. Okay. And that does happen on occasion. But most of the time, if we're purchasing a park that was built in the 80s, all the inventory that's in there was 80s or newer. So usually they're not past the point of no return. We like to go in there and gut them. So essentially, we'll put it back together with completely new infrastructure. And it looks and feels like a brand new home, even though it has like 80s vintage architecture. Yeah. But everything is brand new. Insulation, wiring, plumbing, HVAC, floors, cabinets, you name it. Everything is brand new, inside and out, windows, doors, siding. We might spend $30,000, $40,000 on a renovation of an old park-owned coach. But when you're done, the two things occur there. One is you've improved the visual kind of curb appeal in the park by doing that. And the second thing is you're attracting a higher quality tenant. So you're able to, especially if there's a lot of park-owned inventory, you're able to influence the culture of the community by bringing in a little bit more. I mean, the affordable housing resident pool goes from those who want to live in a tin box for $200 a month for lot rent to those who want to live in a nice, fully amenitized community with, it's like the neighborhood. It's like a subdivision of mobile homes, and they're willing to pay $1,000 a month. So there's a kind of a wide spectrum of demand that exists in the affordable housing space. We tend to like to tap into that kind of upper or that top, that's more expensive part of the affordable housing, even though it's still, 50% the cost of a Class A apartment, for example. But we're trying to provide a B plus Class A, kind of in that range experience in all of our parks.
So when you come in and you're doing one of these 30 to 40K renovations, you said you basically are gutting it and putting it back. Are you using sheetrock on the walls when you come back, or are you doing paneling? A lot of those.
Yeah, well, what we found is, now there's a place for paneled units. Mm-hmm. The challenge that you have with paneled units is when you get a hole in the wall, like how do you match it? It's almost impossible to do, right? Unless it happens right away when the manufacturer ships the unit. Drywall's simple. It's been around. You can patch it in 1,000 different ways. You can texture it 1,000 different ways. So it's really simple. And it does kind of have a little bit more of a sturdy feel like it's a site-built home, even though these are manufactured on off-site. I mean, it feels like you're in a regular home. So typically, it's more expensive. I mean, we're essentially remodeling it like you would remodel a rental house,
For sure.
a site-built rental house. And everything is up to those standards. That makes the home more expensive. But when you have a more expensive home, you attract a different kind of tenant. And typically those tenants are accretive to the culture in the community.
What about supplies that you're putting in these? You said a lot of them you're replacing the windows, that kind of thing. Are you getting these at mobile home suppliers? Do you have a direct connection with some of those? As you know, mobile homes are just it's a weird deal. It's like, you couldn't just use a 2x4 because that would just, make it a little bit simpler. Instead, you've got these, a 2x1 or a 3x1 or whatever it is. It's not quite a 2x4. And,
yeah. Well, when we renovate these, that's part of the reason why we get them.
Okay.
Because we'll build it just like a stick-built home. So we are using 2x4s. They're all standard products. They're standard windows. They're standard doors, jambs. Like all this stuff is cabinets. I mean, if you go into what you're speaking of, is a lot of these older vintage homes, like the size of the home dictates the size of everything inside of it. It's almost like a miniature version of a home, like a dollhouse. And the counter depths are different and the sink sizes are different.
Yep.
The door jambs are narrower. Like everything is built cheaper and lighter. So they're smaller and lighter. So that lighter thing was for shipping.
Mm-hmm.
They're mobile homes. They actually move down the road when they're being brought to a mobile home park. So they're trying to keep materials light. But things have changed so much. Like if you go look at new manufactured houses today, they're built with 2x6 exterior construction. In the same fashion that you build a brand spanking new site-built home. The only difference is they're built on a frame with wheels under it.
Right.
And then they're set in place. So you'd be surprised. The quality of manufactured housing has changed dramatically in the last 20 years.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. If you look at some of the new ones, I mean, it's just like you said. I mean, it's like a stick-built home, and and some of the designs are amazing. They're limited on certain heights and stuff just because they need to go down the road still, but it's pretty cool what they've been able to do with them. Yeah, that's neat. That's neat. I've never heard of anybody kind of coming in completely. We do rehabs on ours. We're not taking them up to the same level, it sounds like, as you are. We're trying to do, all new plumbing, electrical, a lot of, if we're having to remove, some of the paneling and different things, we're replacing it typically with 1/4-inch sheetrock because it is just easier to work with from that standpoint. But
I think a lot of that has to do with the location of the property. So, like, I'll use some examples. We have a park that's down in a small, almost border town in Arizona, southern Arizona. Site-built homes in the neighborhood around the park that we own there, they're like $185,000.
Okay.
Well,
yeah.
if you bring in a brand new, even a kind of a lower entry level, nice single wide, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 14-foot wide by, call it like 60-foot long single wide, with kind of entry level features, you're probably still $70,000 delivered. And then you got to do the setup and install and air conditioning. And we like in Arizona, we like to put shades. So we give them an awning and concrete parking and stairway and deck and all that. You're into it for $100,000.
Yeah.
So we think about the cost of chattel financing for the new resident who's going to be your buyer. And so their monthly payment for the mortgage on the home, plus the lot rent that we charge there, is probably the same price as they could pay for a mortgage in a house in the neighborhood across the street. So where's the attraction for them to come into that park? So you can't sell, the lesson here is you can't sell homes at scale. Like you could have a home on the market for a year in that kind of location before you finally get a buyer that says, well, I'll take the brand new home with all the new features over the fixer-upper outside the park, even though I know I don't own the land, right? So in that scenario, it makes way more sense to do kind of light renovation of existing homes because the price point needs to be dramatically lower than the competition in the single family market outside in the neighborhood. So we would do the same thing.
Yeah.
When I'm talking about stripping them down and gutting them and starting over, we're in a $450,000 neighborhood. So now you could sell a $100,000 fully renovated product that essentially is a new home, and the delta between their monthly cost to live in the park is still substantially less than it would be on a mortgage on a single family home in the surrounding neighborhood. So all of this kind of leads to location.
For sure. Yeah.
But I think that if you could zoom out, that's probably one of the greatest lessons that we've learned in the last decade of doing mobile home parks is that you can't fill homes or you can't infill vacant spaces at scale unless you're in a expensive market or relative to the cost of the homes in the park. So the cost for the same mobile home in Georgia or Seattle, same cost. Doesn't cost you any less or more, separate of delivery, from the factory. But Seattle obviously is going to have 2x the median home value, or maybe 3x the median home value. So location it kind of drives the strategy of what you do with the product in your park.
Yeah, for sure. And what about you made a comment, Jack, about as you were building, buying and raising capital being the easy, the easier side of it. It's really building that infrastructure in the background. What are some of the key hires that you and your team did, and would you do it in that order again if you were to start from the beginning?
I would probably do it in a different order today.
Okay.
So we were bootstrapping the business. So initially, I have a partner, his name is Nate. It was just Nate and Jack. I was finding the deals, raising the capital. Nate was running the operations. Our decision, we tried third-party property management on our first deal. That lasted about 6 months. That is a total fail. So the only way that third-party property management works in this industry is if you have fully stabilized assets. Then it's fine. But if there's a value add strategy that includes some heavy lifting, third-party property management doesn't have the capacity or bandwidth to move the needle. It would just take what could get done in 12 months will take 10 years, or else it just won't get done. Yeah. So we quickly realized that you have to build internal property management for this business to work. So our first hire outside of the staff at our parks was kind of a regional property manager. Somebody could oversee the staff at every single one of the properties and make sure that processes were being followed, and in some cases, make sure that processes were being developed. Because in the beginning, all of the processes were stuck in the head of the owner. So those have to be downloaded and built out so that new staff can follow them. So that was probably the most key first hire for us. Bookkeeper was hired in the background. That was a part-time thing at first, but what we realized, particularly if you're managing capital, you end up having like a full back office accounting function. If you scale. So a really good bookkeeper, eventually you're going to need, if you're going to scale like we are, you're going to need to have more horsepower than that. But there also are some key third-party pieces to this business in our view, I wouldn't change that. I would have just done it sooner. So are you familiar with fund administration? Like neutral party fund admin. So a fund fund administrator essentially augments your own internal finance department. So they'll do things like, well, so for example, our internal finance department will do all the kind of day-to-day book journal entries, receipts, all the bookkeeping stuff at the properties. At the end of the month, the fund administrator goes through and reconciles everything and makes sure that everything is in the right chart of accounts and there's no errors, and CapEx is booked as CapEx instead of M&R, and all those kind of little details, the nuance. Then they also report on the performance of each one of the properties to the investors. So there's transparency there. So instead of, the horror stories that exist with Bernie Madoff and, people cooking the books and skimming. And even if you were a good actor, you're an honest person, we still are humans, and there's that potential for human error. So fund admin kind of takes that risk off the table. And that's all they do. Their function is they have, a whole staff of finance nerds, let's call them. That's a friendly term, by the way. I love my nerds. And they do all the bookkeeping, reconciliation. They manage all the capital. They don't touch the money, but they still track every penny and where it goes. They do all the distributions. They do the reports. So they'll issue quarterly financial statements, balance sheets. Their function is just a really, really nice function because it offers transparency for the LPs, but it also allows me to not have to staff that in-house. So, and eventually it's a win. It's more economical for a business like ours to have that function than it would be to not.
Makes sense.
So they also provide like investor portals and AML and KYC and all that stuff that the securities or SEC requires. So it just makes it really simple. I wouldn't build a business where you're raising capital without that function. I just wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
And I probably would have added that function sooner because it comes a snowball if you do it yourself in-house.
Yeah, no, makes sense.
Yeah.
And you'd mentioned, are there any other third-party ones that you would have added, or are you currently leveraging?
Obviously on the insurance side, on the loan broker side, chasing banks and financing yourself is when that's not what you do every day, you probably spend more energy trying to save a buck there than you would, or you'd probably save that just in 25 bips on your interest rate if you would have just used a broker to shop it around.
Yeah.
Home sales, kind of interesting thing in the home sales side. There's really 3 ways that we've found success doing or selling homes, particularly at scale. The hardest one is doing it yourself. It's probably the most effective, and we'll typically try to prove the other 2 ways don't work first.
Right.
In a market, because every market is unique. The easiest way and the simplest way is to go make friends with all the dealers in the market and offer them an incentive to sell homes to residents in your park.
Yeah.
That doesn't always work. So in some markets, we've done that and we've sold a home a quarter. In some markets, we've done that and we've sold 20 homes a quarter. Some markets we've done that and we haven't sold any homes. So every market is going to be a little bit unique. So there's some nuance there. The second way that we found success is to actually purchase the homes yourself, get them set up and installed, and then hire local real estate agents that specialize in the sale of mobile homes in parks.
Okay.
So that's their expertise. They understand the whole process. They know what chattel financing is. They know how to walk buyers through the process. And then you have to incentivize them pretty healthily because the sales price are pretty low. So they don't want to grind through 100 transactions making 3%. It's just it's not enough, right?
Yeah.
So and then the last one is to do it yourself. So you do all your own marketing, you have your own internal sales people. Sometimes that's local boots on the ground sales staff. And sometimes it's more regional staff that handle the sales process, but then they work with the on-site team to show homes and that kind of thing. That's the hardest one to do before you have it set up. But once you have it, we have everything set up, then it's the easiest one to do because you control all the levers. But initially, it's not an easy thing to set up. Just the fact that chattel financing and third-party chattel financing exists makes it the hardest. But that's what makes it difficult. So for those people listening, chattel financing is mortgages on mobile homes.
Yeah.
So you don't go down to the bank on the local corner and get a loan. You can't go to Wells Fargo and get a loan for a mobile home. So there's only a handful of national chattel financing firms, and they're because there's a limited supply. There's only a few places you can go. They kind of have a stronghold on the industry, and everybody has to use them. So they're not the easy. There's a lot of friction there. Let's just say that. So, but once you understand it, and you've found key people that you can work with, and which program works for this type of a resident and which one doesn't, all those bumps start to smooth out.
Yeah, makes sense. This has been good, and I know we kind of dove probably deeper than a lot of the audience wants to on some of that stuff, but just talking with another mobile home park guy, it's always good to hear. How about more on a broader sense? You mentioned that you like the asset class due to the cash flows and everything that you were seeing. But what are some things that you feel like really stand out on this particular asset class compared to some of the others that are out there? Obviously, there's a lot of things you can invest in to make money.
Yeah. And for the benefit of the audience, for those who aren't super familiar, I'll just kind of zoom out. The easiest way that I can describe what a mobile home park is, if you imagine a giant parking lot, and instead of parking cars in each one of the parking spaces, you're parking a home. This is the two things that stand out. The tenant is not renting the home. They purchase it, so they own it. But they're renting the space, the parking space that their home sits on. They pay a monthly fee for the use of that space indefinitely. There's no other real estate where the tenant owns the home, but they still pay rent. And this is the only asset class where that exists. So the difference that in behavior is what stands out the most. So if I can look back on my experience in the apartment business, when someone moves into an apartment, their view is that this is, or their mindset is, this is temporary. I'm going to live in this apartment until I find something better, or until I get a job across town, or a new girlfriend, or whatever it is, or until I buy a home. I'm going to live here. And so they're a weekend, two friends, and a pickup truck away from being out of there. Right. It just doesn't take them much. Nothing keeps them in the apartment. That's why you have turnover. It's expensive. The most expensive thing that you deal with in the apartment business is vacancy. It happens all the time. When you conversely, in the mobile home park business, when someone buys a home, their mindset is that of a homeowner. They're making a permanent housing decision, and their intention is to live there forever. And many times they do. So once they move in, yes, they're still paying rent for the land. They don't own the land. And that's the business. We're renting land. That's what we're doing.
Tough.
And we're providing services and streets and lighting and amenities and a clubhouse and all that fun stuff too. But the thing that stands out the most, and I think that if people don't understand why mobile home parks are so stable, it's that one thing that causes it. Tenants move in, and they move in because of the affordability. And there's no more affordable solution on earth or in America than that, except for jail. I guess you could go live in jail.
Right.
That's a little joke. So they come for the affordability, but they stay because they're homeowners and they love the community. This means that the cash flow constantly goes in the right direction. As you fill vacant spaces, they never become vacant again.
Yeah.
Properly managed, you'll never have a vacancy where you put a new home and sell it. When someone moves, because they do move on occasion, they sell their home to somebody else, and that guy just picks up where the last owner left off. So you don't deal with that expensive cost of vacancy like you do in all these other asset classes. That's the one that stands out the most to me. And the second one is the culture. So when you try walking through a random apartment complex, just wander through the apartment complex and see if somebody stops you and asks a question.
Yeah.
They won't, because they just assume you're another one of the new tenants. Or go do that in a mobile home park. You won't even get past the first street and somebody will be like, "Hey, what are you doing here?"
Yeah.
Like, they're very protective. It's a community. They all know each other. They're familiar. They're friendly. It's dramatically different than any other real estate product.
I think that's a great point. That's one thing that struck me on just our first one was just the kids getting off. I remember doing some work at one of them. We had some park-owned homes, and so I'm there all day and see the kids, get picked up from the school, get dropped off, and they're all kind of coming down to go to their various homes, and the parents kind of walking the other one to their house, and just it was just a weird, just a different sense of community that I really hadn't seen in any other type of rental. So,
yeah, it's really interesting, Keith. When I look back on, I drove by mobile home parks growing up all the time, and I used to look at them as trailer parks or trailer trash, and it's like, I'll never want to be involved with that, right? The industry has changed. I mean, the stereotype of trailer trash was real, and the industry has dramatically changed in the last, call it 2 decades. Would have never thought that my passion would be buying, repositioning, and owning and managing mobile home parks. But once you understand like the true affordable housing, it's the only one. It is a really neat thing to do, to go take a kind of tired, neglected property and bring it back to life and offer a safe, comfortable, clean, affordable place to live. And then along with that, the whole investment side, which brings, stable performance that's kind of unshakable. I mean, COVID, we still collected all of our rent.
Yeah.
And our apartment friends were down 30-40% in rent collections. We collected all of it. So yeah, it's not to even mention the tax benefits.
Yeah.
I mean, if you think about the bonus depreciation tax benefit, it's you just keep stacking more icing on the cake.
For sure. Yeah, it's neat. And for the audience, we obviously have talked bonus depreciation, cost segregation studies, but just for the audience, you kind of put this in the context of it being a parking lot. So some folks that maybe even have an understanding of that may not understand that there is a certain amount you can depreciate, and it's actually one of the better assets when it comes to that. Can you maybe speak to that just a little bit, Jack?
Yeah, just to kind of educate the audience, depreciation is looked at through the lens of the IRS by the life or the expected life of a portion of the property. So you don't depreciate land because it has an indefinite life. Buildings, like commercial buildings, you can depreciate those over 39 years because they're expected to have a longer life. Residential, like an apartment complex or a single family home, you depreciate those over a 27.5-year schedule because they're expected to have that long of a life before they need to be completely redone. But land improvements is the part where mobile home parks stand out. So land improvements are things like roads, sidewalks, pedestals, pads, landscaping, lighting, underground infrastructure, all the piping and wiring and plumbing that's underground, fencing, all that kind of stuff. It's improvements to the land, but it's not a building. Most properties, the the lion's share of the value is in the building. Whereas in a mobile home park, since we don't own the homes, most of the value is in the land improvements. So the difference when you go through a cost segregation study is that all of those land improvements qualify for bonus depreciation, which means you can expense 100% of their value in the year that you acquire the property, although that is sunsetting a little bit each year. But the result is that when you invest $1, this is what really matters. Depending on where we are in that tax code, you could get $1 of passive losses or more in some cases if you're using debt. But you have substantial losses that you get on your K1 in the calendar year that the property was purchased. So you can use that against the income from the investment itself, but you can also use that for like kind of income that is present in that calendar year. And then if you don't use it, it rolls forward. So it carries forward and you can use those same benefits in subsequent years. So the tax benefits, and what we've discovered is the larger the investor, the more emphasis there is on the tax benefit. So typically, if you take a $50,000 investor, we have a lot of them, so I'm not disparaging $50,000 investors, but their focus is how much money can I make?
Yeah.
And the $1 million check writer, his first question is, how much money can I save? How much tax benefit can I get? So larger investors by nature have tax problems. They want to avoid tax in their life. So they're seeking passive losses on their K1 that they can get through making an investment in a mobile home park. So yeah, that's it in a nutshell. It's the only other real estate that has similar potential for that would be RV parks, kind of the sister. Golf courses, most of the land is the values in the land improvements, obviously. Cemeteries, stuff like that. Any real estate where the value is in the improvements to the land, not the buildings.
Yeah.
And mobile home parks really stand out there.
For sure. Well, this has been really good, Jack. If you could, first, is there anything that you were hoping I was going to ask that we didn't get to that you want to just share with the audience before we get to?
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, being that you have your toe in the mobile home park world as well, I was kind of looking forward to this conversation, just talking shop.
Yeah, me too. And so where can people find out more about you, more about what you're doing, if they'd like to learn more about investing with you as well?
Yeah, so our website is 52ten.com, and that's the number 52, and then 10 is spelled out. So it's 52ten.com, and you'll find everything there.
Perfect. And I've got two other questions for you that I ask every guest. One would just be any advice you would give somebody who's maybe just starting out in their investment journey?
As an investor or as a real estate investor?
We can just make it broad as an investor, period.
Yeah, I would say get the people right. It's the most important thing. I mean, it is important to get the real estate right. You and I we're apologists. We have a banner up for mobile home parks for all the reasons why they're lower risk on the risk scale. But I think the most important thing to get right is the people. So if the real estate goes wrong, if you're with the right people, they'll figure out a way to pivot and solve it, or at least reduce the damage or the potential for loss. You get the wrong people, and your experience as an investor will be terrible. So I've often shared with people that it does no good to be persuaded for the wrong reasons to invest with somebody and then not be able to sleep at night. There's an emotional yield that you get when you get the people right.
Yeah, I think that's
so. Investors have told me that they would rather invest, make 10 to 12% with someone that they can trust implicitly, versus risking 25% yield with somebody that they're terrible. I think their stewardship is not where it needed to be. So that would be my top advice: get the people right.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. How about a book recommendation? Doesn't have to be real estate related, but it certainly can be something that you've read that's been impactful.
I will share a real estate book. I still think that it's the best real estate book that's ever been written on market cycles. It's written by a guy named Philip J. Anderson, and it's called The Secret Lives of Real Estate and Banking. And try to get, if you're going to order this on Amazon, it's like $35, best $35 you'll ever spend. Try to get the newest version, because I think it was written in like 2008 or 10, maybe 2010, like right after the GFC. But it goes back over the last 200 histories of real estate and tracks the cycles which match human behavior. And it's a fascinating book, probably one that has given me the most confidence when it comes to making decisions with respect to duration of holding assets and loan terms and all those kind of things, because it turns out these real estate cycles are very repeatable.
Yeah. Okay. I have actually not had that one recommended on the show yet, so I'll have to check that one out myself.
Well, especially if you're buying assets with the intention to exit, that book will have a tremendous amount of value in your life.
Awesome. Well, Jack, this has been great, man. I appreciate it. Thank you so much for being a guest on The Wealth Flow, and I think we'll call it a show.
Being that you're still here, I trust you found value in this episode. I personally wish I would have known these guests and strategies when I started my wealth creation journey. Go to wealthflow.capital to subscribe to our newsletter. And as a free gift, we will send you our quarterly market report and the top 10 things to look for in an investment opportunity. Take a minute to give our show a rating and review. Help us reach 1 million professionals by subscribing and sharing this episode with someone you know who could also find value in it.